Ognuno sta solo sul cuore della terra, trafitto da un raggio di sole, ed è subito sera.
To the cities we came in a time of disorder that was ruled by hunger. We sheltered with the people in a time of uproar, and then we joined in their rebellion.
Ognuno sta solo sul cuore della terra, trafitto da un raggio di sole, ed è subito sera.
The city streets led to the swamps. Our speech betrayed us to the butchers. We can only do little, but without us, those who rule might sleep more easily. That is how we make use of our time on this earth.
Ognuno sta solo sul cuore della terra, trafitto da un raggio di sole, ed è subito sera.
El mundo no es otra cosa que lo que somos. Mientras estamos colocando diminutos paquetitos repletos de inseguridades en el pecho del otro.
Ognuno sta solo sul cuore della terra, trafitto da un raggio di sole, ed è subito sera.
Uno se aleja tan desconcertado, deseando regresar a buscar lo que se deja almacenado. Forrándose de partículas de polvo y salitre, asume la parte de desespero que le corresponde mientras el hambre va naciendo en todas las bocas.
Ognuno sta solo sul cuore della terra, trafitto da un raggio di sole, ed è subito sera. The dreams of the past, the histories of this present, to the memories of our future.
Welcome to the Marchers. Tonight, we tag the walls of this chapel with the spray-colored riffs of mixed words and mashed-up stories. We reshuffle the sacred verbs and compositions of poets, storytellers, and revolutionaries from around the world and from across the centuries. We alter and challenge their beats, resampling sounds, adding and removing and switching them around so we may dream about the past, sing about the present, and remember the future you and I once envisioned for ourselves. We steal from Walt Whitman, Sandra Maria Esteves, Salvatore Quasimodo, Yara Liceaga, and Baba Israel. We reinvent the worlds of Jesus Colón, Kurt Weill, and Bertolt Brecht. We mix the paths of legendary marchers from Italy, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, and the Bronx. And we ask that you surrender to this urgent collage with an open heart and a very alert mind. Our first tag, the silent, dancing memories of Puerto Rican author, poet Judith Ortiz Coffer. Let's do this.
To the dreams of the past, the histories of this present, to the memories of our future.
They say when I arrived, traveling light, the women who waited plugged the cracks in the walls with rags dipped in alcohol to keep drafts and demons out. Candles were lit to the Virgin. They say Mother's breath kept blowing them out, right and left. When I slipped into their hands, the room was in shadows. They say I nearly turned away, undoing the hasty knot of my umbilicus. They say my urge to bleed told them I was like a balloon with a leak, a soul trying to fly away through the cracks in the wall. The midwife sewed, and the women prayed as they fitted me for life. But their prayers held me back. The bandages held me in. They say Mother slept through it all, blowing out candles with her breath.
Mama,
Everyone called my great-grandmother,
Mama,
always working,
Mama,
with quickness and determination,
Mama,
with her legendary matriarchal power
Mama,
to command
Mama,
and keep
Mama,
everyone's
Mama,
attention.
It is not like it used to be
when I was a girl. Back then, a man could leave a girl standing at the altar
Standing at the altar.
with a bouquet of fresh flowers in her hands and disappear off the face of the earth. No way to track him down if he was from another town. He could be a married man with 2 or 3 families all over the island. And there was no way to know.
And
There were men who did this. Men with the devil in their flesh, who would come to a pueblo like this one, take a job at one of the haciendas, never meaning to stay, only to have a good time and to seduce the women.
As Mama's story progressed, I noticed how my young Aunt Laura lowered her eyes, refusing to meet Mama's meaningful gaze. Laura was 17 and in her last year of high school, and already engaged to a boy from another town who had staked his claim with a tiny diamond ring, then left to Los Nueva York to make his fortune. They were planning to get married in a year, but Mama had expressed serious doubts the wedding would ever take place.
A man set free without a legal contract is a man lost. Marriage is not something men desire, but simply the price they pay for the privilege of children. And of course, for what no decent woman would give away for free. Maria la Loca was 17 when it happened to her. Look at her now.
Look at her now.
Look at her now.
A fat middle-aged woman who lives with her old mother, delivering pies to make a living.
I listened closely. Maria was a town character. The most peculiar thing about Maria was that she walked and moved like a little girl, but had the thick hips and wrinkled face of an old woman. She would swing her hips in a clownish way, and sometimes even hop and skip up to someone's house. She spoke to no one. Even if you asked her a question, she would just look at you and smile, showing her yellow teeth. But I had heard if you got close enough, you could hear her humming a tune without words. The kids yelled at her,
La loca, la loca, la loca.
but Maria seemed not to care, carrying her basket of pasteles like a grotesque Little Red Riding Hood. Maria la Loca was once a beautiful girl. Everyone thought she would marry the Mendez boy, the richest man in town. But this man made a fool of her and ruined her life. Maria had fallen prey to a man and allowed love to defeat her.
She looked like a princess in her lace as she waited at the altar.
Then, as Mama reached the tragic denouement of the story, I was distracted by the sound of my Aunt Laura's violent rocking. She seemed on the verge of tears. She knew that the fable was intended for her.
And then Maria's long
A fever that would not break for
And
days.
her mother's despair.
That woman climbed the church steps on her knees.
Every
Wore
morning,
black as a promesa to the Holy Virgin.
in exchange for her daughter's health.
She calls her shadow Juan, looking back often as she walks. She has grown fat, breasts huge as reservoirs. She once opened up her blouse in church to show the silent town what a plentiful mother she could be. Since her old mother died, buried in black, she lives alone. Out of the lace, she made curtains for her room, doilies out of the veil. They are now yellow as malaria. She hangs live chickens from her waist to sell, walks to the town swinging her skirts of flesh. She doesn't speak to anyone. Dogs follow the scent of blood to be shed. In their hungry yellow eyes, she sees his face. She takes him to the knife, time after time.
That week, Aunt Laura was going to have her wedding gown fitted, though no firm date had been set for the wedding.
By the time Maria returned from her honeymoon with death, she was ravished.
No longer young or sane.
That Maria is getting crazier every day.
Mama said. You know that tune she's always humming? Well, that's the wedding march. In the days when Mama was a young girl, our pueblo had not yet been touched by progress. Adolescent girls were not allowed to go anywhere without their mothers.
Except to a certain river that no man was allowed to approach.
Rio Rojo, the river that was reserved for the maidens of the pueblo. Crystalline, this was a female place, a pastoral setting.
Where no true macho would want to be caught swimming or fishing.
A donde un verdadero macho no podía ir a nadar o a pescar.
At the Rio, the young women feel free. At the Rio, the young girls splash away their last few precious days as children. At the Rio, they have the freedom to bathe nude. But some cannot break through a lifetime of training and modesty and keep their chemises and bloomers on. One of the shyest girls is Marina. Marina is a lovely girl, 15 years old with thick black hair hung down to her waist. Her voice so soft, you have to come very close to hear what she's saying. She's surely destined for convent life. She often sits on the bank and watches the other girls with her large, wet, melancholy eyes. Marina has fine hands, and all the other girls like for her to braid their hair at the end of the day. The end of the summer. Kiki, the mayor's daughter, finally wins permission to bathe with the pueblo's girls at the river. Marina chooses to keep company only with Kiki. Kiki looks like a pale fish among the others. She comes from a Spanish family who believes in keeping the bloodlines pure. She has come to the pueblo to prepare for her debut in society. She will be dressed like a princess and displayed before the island's most eligible bachelors as a potential bride. Her mother takes to her bed with a sick headache when she thinks of her daughter removing her clothes in front of the daughters of rough farmers and their sun-darkened wives. Pero tan pronto el grupo llega al río, ella se quita todita la ropa con gusto. They are inseparable. Marina takes Kiki's wet hair into her brown hands and weaves it into 2 perfect plaits, which she then pins to the girl's head like a crown. They join together wordlessly. It's an idyllic time. One afternoon, Marina and Kiki do not return to the river from an excursion into the woods. The mayor goes in person to notify Marina's mother. What he finds is a woman who has fallen permanently into silence, sitting calmly in a rocking chair.
A long time ago, she had abandoned the world, secluded in a secret place of shadows where she wished to remain. Marina's mother had lost her young husband and delivered a child prematurely on the same night. She had had a son, a tiny little boy. But the new mother, weakened in body and mind, had decided that she preferred a daughter for company. She begged the anxious midwife to keep her secret. As soon as she was able to walk to church, she had the child dressed in a flowing gown and christened him Marina. By the time Marina was old enough to discover the difference in her body and the bodies of her girlfriends, her mother had forgotten all about having born a son, slipping away out of reality. And so Marina kept up appearances, waiting on her body's dictates year by year, living in torment, until Kiki appeared like an angel.
The mayor is furious. His wife is under the impression that the 2 girls had been kidnapped for political reasons. Until finally, the old nurse confesses the whole sad tale. Kiki and Marino.
Marina.
Marino and Kiki had eloped.
They had fallen in love, and nothing could change their minds.
She had sold her pearl necklace and used the money for passage on the next steamship out of San Juan to New York.
The mayor and his wife exiled themselves to Spain. Marino and Kiki had several children. They worked, they got old, and had many grandchildren.
Do you think he made a good husband?
He would know what it takes to make a woman happy.
A mí me gustaría que la piel fuera otra cosa, que desaparecieran los edificios de apartamentos y los carros de policía, y todo se hiciera natural y palpable.
A mí me gustaría que la piel fuera otra cosa, que todo se hiciera natural y palpable. Yo quisiera palpar al mundo con mi voz, con una melodía retumbando en la cabeza. A mí me gustaría que la piel fuera otra cosa, que todo se hiciera natural y palpable. Yo quisiera palpar al mundo con mi voz, con una melodía retumbando en la cabeza.
Y masticar la escarcha que vas dejando regata cuando nos miramos demasiado cerca, darle cantacitos a tu pecho, sí. Y masticar la escarcha que vas dejando regada cuando nos miramos demasiado cerca, darle cantacitos a tu pecho, sí.
Y masticar la charca que vas dejando regada cuando nos miramos demasiado cerca, darle cantacitos a tu pecho mientras. Y masticar la escarcha que vas dejando regada cuando nos miramos demasiado cerca, darle cantacitos a tu pecho mientras.
Me cantas en silencio, sacarte de contexto, guardarnos en un hueco, en melodía de luz. Yo quería morderte, dejar regado el brillo sobre el suelo despacio, con melodía de luz. A mí me gustaría que la piel fuera otra cosa.
Oh, here we go. It's party time. 5, 6, 7.
Mírala,
Hey, come on.
mírala, mírala.
Everybody, come on.
Mírala, mírala, mírala.
Yeah, yeah. Mi gente, ¿cómo están esta noche? How you doing? How you doing? All right. There is a link in my body from Honolulu to the Bronx, from Anchorage, Alaska to the Lower East Side. A link, a call to mix and to remix, to sample and to mash up, to reassemble voices and meanings and songs for you and for the people who also toil and listen on the other side, the leaders and the artists, the audience and the activists, the us and the we, and the names of each. Hawaii's Antiviki, Jeffrey, Hala'opua Ali Ilima, Okalani Kayu Shar, Alaska Native Heritage Center, Lauren, Casey, Kelsey Maddox, Ed, Elia, Michelle, Los Pregoneros that went to Hawaii, Yara, Sol, Desmar, Arnaldo, Jorge, La Mamas, Eso, and Baba, and Naomi. This is for them. This is for you. Here we go.
Mírala,
Qué linda está.
mírala, mírala.
Revolución boricua.
Mírala,
Mírala, mírala, mírala. Qué bella está, revuelta. Vamos para allá. Por ahí viene, por ahí va la revolución boricua, por ahí viene y va.
Oh.
My heart is heavy with the weight of wars and words and worlds that crumble like buildings in El Barrio,
Speak.
only to be replaced with the gentrified skies of change. A change of skin, of language, of step and sound.
Of record and record of food and taste and accent.
¡Hueva!
Hey, accents are now expensive throw rugs from somewhere exotic in the living room of what feels like a generic New York experience on this island of Manhattan.
On this island of Manhattan, we are the latest in a long line of changes.
Here we go.
mírala.
Hey, come on.
Mírala, mírala.
Hey.
Mírala, mírala, mírala.
Mírala, qué linda viene.
Mírala, qué linda. La revolución boricua que no da ni un paso atrás. Mírala.
From Puerto Rico to the Bronx, our plena, the music of the streets, the newspaper of our people, harboring the voices of those clamoring for self-determination, sovereignty, and respect, reminding us it is a dangerous thing to forget the climate of your birthplace, to choke out the voices of dead relatives when in dreams they call you by your secret name. It is dangerous to spurn the clothes you were born to wear for the sake of fashion. Dangerous to use weapons and sharp instruments you are not familiar with. Dangerous to disdain the plaster saints before which your mother kneels, praying with embarrassing fervor that you survive in the place you have chosen to live. A A bare cold room with no pictures on the walls. A forgetting place where she fears you will die of loneliness and exposure. Jesús, María y José, el olvido is a dangerous thing.
Eva.
Mírala, qué linda viene. Mírala, qué linda va. La revolución boricua, que no da ni un paso atrás. Si tú pasas por mi casa y tú ves a mi mamá, tú le dices que venga y se integre, que este movimiento no da ni un paso atrás. Tú le dices que venga y se integre, que este movimiento no da ni un paso atrás.
But how can even the native New Yorkers call out in anger when the natives of this island are too often unseen and unheard?
And here we gather, the Bronx, Puerto Rico, Alaska, Hawaii.
An unlikely, likely alliance of artistic voice, steeped in volcanoes, beatboxes, gods, goddesses, the walrus and the seal, the boombox, the coquí, and the block.
The breath, the chant, the rhyme.
Siento una voz que me dice.
Nunca detengas tu rumbo. Siento una voz que repite. Busca siempre donde laborar.
Ajá.
Siento una voz que me dice. Nunca detengas tu rumbo.
Nunca detengas tu rumbo.
Siento una voz que repite.
Busca siempre donde laborar.
When we sing and dance, we resist those that banned our songs. When we hold hands, when we circle and cipher, we create a bubble, like Auntie Vicky from Hawaii said, a bubble of bounty and beauty.
Yeah. We are tradition and remix. We are pure and hybrid. We are island and pupil, student and master. We are plaster and sand, concrete and snow, tundra and thunder, treasure and plunder. We are more than you know.
And we are you, when we cry and dream and we fall into each other's arms.
We are the silence that is felt and known as we approach the offer Tupele. In each of us, something is felt and stirred beyond word.
Mírala, mírala, mírala. Mírala, mírala, mírala.
In our mouths, there are clues and rhythms. And I hear a voice become a seal.
I hear a drum keep time and answer the call like bomba and escape from the misery of slavery.
Mírala,
Hey, come on.
mírala, mírala.
Hey.
Mírala, mírala, mírala.
Where are the Taino? In our cells, DNA, and in the movement of hip, lip, and soul,
Yeah.
we carry each other through blood, through word, and the glide of hand, and the wind of waste. Our image, our shape is our theater.
A theater of resistance and joy.
We are connected in this digital ritual, a rite of passage.
A call from island to island.
From mainland to mainland. So hear our call. We await your response. Here we go.
Mírala,
Hey, come on.
mírala, mírala. Mírala, mírala, mírala.
Some of us feel clear in our culture, know the sound of our ancestors, and yet have had to resist through generations those who have colonized and demonized our connection to nature, our connection to spirit, stopping our chants, our rituals. In Alaska, there are villages that have lost their songs and have had to listen deep to sing them back to life. In Hawaii, there are schools where students soar in their native tongue. It took generations for them to be built.
Some of us have lost our tongue, but we know when we hear our drum. Hey,
Ale, ale, ale.
hey, hey, ragata, ragata,
And good dog. Some of us have that ancestry within, that complex mix of colonizers and colonized.
And when you trace back, you find.
And when you trace back, you find.
And when you trace back, you find.
And when you trace back, even in the homelands of invaders,
When you trace back, you find.
there were struggles and muzzles on mother tongues,
And when you trace back.
and drums in the lands of Europe.
And when you trace back, you find.
There is a common struggle.
And when you trace back.
Find a sonnet of sovereignty and
When you
self-determination,
trace back, you
a
find.
continuum of control and commerce,
And when you trace back.
of exploit, and those who know that to resist is
When
art.
you trace back, you find.
Fights with word and with body is
And when you
sacred.
trace back.
To fight with word and with body is sacred.
And when you trace back, you
Fight
find.
with word and with body is sacred.
And when you trace
Sacred like
back.
protest and heart's vision.
And when you trace back, you find. And when you trace back.
And when you trace back, you find.
Trace back, you find.
And when you trace back, you find.
Trace back.
And when you trace back, you
When you
find.
trace back, you find.
Oh.
And when you trace back. When you trace back, you find. Oh, when you trace back, you trace back, you find. When you trace back, you find.
And when you trace back,
And when you trace back, you find.
Please come forward and remain standing while the chairman administers an oath.
Please raise your right hand.
Kindly identify
Do
yourself
you
by
solemnly
name,
swear
place of
that the
residence, and
testimony you are
occupation.
about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Are you now, or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party?
my name is Jesus Colon Lopez, a postal clerk and a waiter, a journalist and an author, a dishwasher and a dock worker, yes, organizing kindred folk,
Founding member of La Liga Puertorriqueña, labor organizer, and president of Sociedad Fraternal Cervantes. Founding member and first secretary of the Alianza Obrera Puertorriqueña. I was born in the town of Calley, Puerto
I
Rico
will not.
on January 20th, 1901.
I will not.
I studied high school in San Juan,
I will not.
but I came to New York before I finished.
I will not.
In New York, I worked my way through night school at Boys High, from where
I
I
will
graduated.
not.
I attended St. John's University
I will
for a
not.
time, but did not complete
I will
a
not.
college degree.
I will not cooperate with this committee.
I have prepared a statement which I will read, and then it's up to you. It is clear to all who have followed the antics of the Committee of the Un-American Activities so-called that it has served to protect and mask the real
It
un-American
keeps
activities
continuously. It keeps continuously investigating and persecuting individuals and groups who have dedicated their lives in defense of all that is free and all that is true, and in the best traditions of democracy in the United States.
I just walked up the narrow wooden ladder. Yes, the ladder that connects the dock with the ships. I did not carry any bundles with me, just myself. The sailor at the top of the ladder must have thought that I was one of those kids, always going up and down with messages to the passengers. I am 16 years old, hiding in the linen closet. I imagine the SS Carolina leaving the Bay of San Juan under the watchful eye of El Castillo del Morro. Time passes. Minutes seem like hours. Hours seem like days. Until someone comes for fresh new linen and finds me there. I am brought to the captain. After some sermonizing on his part, I am placed under the merciful hands of the chief steward, who takes me to the chef in the kitchen. That is the tallest mountain of pots, pans, and cauldrons I have ever seen in my life. Diantre. Yes, sir. Shiny as a Lincoln copper penny. All through the voyage? That too? I'm entrusted with the cleaning and washing of all those mounds of plates and cups. All of that cheap and heavy porcelain? Okay. There seems to be a minimum quota on how many items you can break during the voyage. In an argument, you can strike somebody with one of those heavy coffee cups and knock him cold. There is no regard for extra fine cleaning and washing. No taking your time in the artistic and precise handling of plates, saucers, and other dishes. It is simply a question of quantity against quality in dishwashing. You cannot just stop to see if the image of your sweaty, dirty face is truly reflected on the plate that you just cleaned, washed, and shined. The chef might think that you are just stalling for time, or perhaps just trying to get 1 minute's rest. And that is unthinkable. It takes me a few days to get my skin accustomed to the steam they call warm water used to wash those dishes. When you dip your hands and forearms in it, you feel for a moment as if they are melting. Yes, sir. I have a little experience serving tables in Puerto Rico. Me? Work as a busboy in the second-class dining room? Sure. Run from table to table? Sure. No less than 2 armfuls of empty china to the kitchen each time? Sure. Thus pass the days and nights, traveling under strict war regulations because the U.S. is at war with Germany. Would I like to stay and work on this ship? $30 a month, room and board. 1 day off when we come to port? I will think it over. When the ship drops anchor alongside the Brooklyn dock, and the plank connecting dock and ship is securely fastened in its place, I will go ashore as unobtrusively as I came into the boat in San Juan Bay in Puerto Rico.
Good thing he didn't go back. to accept the steward's offer to remain in the ship. For a few trips later, the SS Carolina was sent to the bottom of the Caribbean by a German submarine. New York in the early 1900s is different. The Puerto Rican colonia in the city amounts to 8,000, perhaps 9,000 people, with cigar makers and their families making up to 50% of that tiny population.
These cigar makers, master artisans, work in small factories throughout the city and enjoy a privilege unknown to the rest of the working class. As the cigar makers cut and roll the tobacco leaves, they listen to the voice of the lector. This is a man or a woman that the factory workers hire. Each chips in to pay his or her salary, and the lector reads to them.
Daily newspapers from here and from abroad. The major literary and philosophical works from all over the world are the staple diet for these men and women.
What is a factory worker's actual diet? Well, poor pay, long hours, terrible working conditions, discrimination because they're Puerto Rican, many of them black Puerto Rican.
Somehow in New York, he does not seem to find the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that he was so sure he would find. New York in the early 1900s is different.
Sir,
Do you honestly apprehend, while you are under oath, you be supplying information about the Communist Party? Sufficient information for criminal proceedings.
Instead of this committee harassing the Puerto Rican people here in New York, it is high time that the people of the United States start recognizing this committee for what it is. An instrument of U.S. reaction to thwart, misrepresent, and destroy all attempts of the democratic-loving persons of this country to keep and strengthen their Constitution, fought for by the founders of the United States.
do you know
The
from
Puerto Rican
personal
people are being
experience,
invaded
persons
by this
that
witch
are
hunt
now
committee that
or have
questions
ever been
and harasses
member
200
of the
workers,
Communist
intellectuals, and freedom-loving Puerto Rican patriots to see if they can do by
Are you
fear
now a
and
member
intimidation and
of the
jailing
Communist
what
Party?
American imperialism has been unable to do by
I
military
repeat,
occupation,
are you now
sweatshops,
or have ever
barely
been
living
member
wages.
of the Communist Party?
A matter of loyalty. As a result of a future investigation that will be made of you as an employee of the Post Office Department in 1955, information will be received which will indicate that you will be affiliated with an organization, association, movement, group, or combination of persons designated by the Attorney General as subversive. On the basis of this evidence, reasonable grounds will be made that you are disloyal to the government of the United States. More specifically, it will be alleged that for several years you will be a member of, an active worker in,
Luchadores del Porvenir Puertorriqueño, a member lodge of the International Workers' Order.
a subversive organization. That in June of 1946, you will join
The veterans of the Abraham Lincoln Tank Brigade.
a subversive organization in picketing the Spanish consul in New York. That for several years you will be a member of, an active worker in,
The Postal Section, National Executive Committee of the Spanish American Section of the International Workers' Order.
a subversive organization, and that you frequently associate with persons well known to you to be communist and fellow travelers. You have a right to answer these charges in writing within 30 days of the receipt of this notice. Your answer must be sworn to or affirmed before a notary public or any other person authorized to administer oaths or affirmations. You may support your answer by affidavits if you wish. You are requested to answer each and every charge, setting forth fully and in detail all matters which may be pertinent and shall cause that you should not be removed. Your answer is addressed to loyal to the Board of the Post Office, Martin, Washington, 25 D.C.
This letter will be sent to Joaquin Colon, his brother. After working for the post office for 36 years, Joaquin Colon will be fired based on these charges. The consequences will be devastating.
Jobless.
his family without a home, without food, jobless, penniless. When Joaquin appeals, he will be able to prove that the charges are false.
He will be offered reinstatement if he agrees not to see or visit his brother Jesus ever again.
Joaquin will of course refuse, and he will be immediately retired from the United States Postal Department without honors. Jobless, penniless, his family without a home, without food, jobless, penniless. And that's how the loyalty system goes. Cada uno está solo en el corazón de la tierra, atravesado por un rayo de sol, y de repente es noche. Ognuno sta solo sul cuore della terra, trafitto da un raggio di sole, ed è subito sera.
Everyone stands alone at the heart of the world, pierced by a ray of sunlight, and suddenly, it's evening.
Ognuno sta solo sul cuore della terra, trafitto da un raggio di sole, ed è subito.
This is a message from Carlos. He says, I support Pregones PRTT because Boricua artistic expression was born of the racial, cultural, and linguistic roots which formed us. Hacer arte es hacer patria. Help the young to know themselves. I mean, this is exactly one of the reasons why I love PRTT and Pregones, is because this was the first place I worked when I moved to New York City as a young artist. It's one of the only places in New York where I can explore my artistic side and my culture, and it's a place where both of those things can come together.
I really do feel that the level of integrity in the work, also in the sense of community with front of house and just everybody involved in the Pregones family, makes people feel happy and makes people leave the theater feeling lifted.
It speaks to our current moment here in the world where people need to escape, and I love that this theater provides inspiration and a reminder of our beautiful culture. I feel that it is a place, a sanctuary for artists, Puerto Rican artists, to develop their craft, develop themselves as people, and it provides that for not only Puerto Ricans here in New York City and abroad, but also it provides that for other Latino artists and also artists from the LGBTQ+ community.
We are so proud to be recognized as one of the leading Latinx theater ensembles in the nation. And we're home to more than 20 artists ranging from choreographers, actors, designers, playwrights, who continue to share their stories and their talent on our stages, both in the Bronx and in Manhattan. The support of our donors not only helps to keep the legacy that Miriam Colon set forth here at Pregones Puerto Rican Traveling Theater, but also impacts artists, for instance, in Puerto Rico, where we have been able to institute grants, emergency grants, to artists that were affected by Hurricane Maria, and now most recently by artists who were also affected by the earthquakes in Puerto Rico. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being part of our family.
no está solo en el corazón de la tierra, atravesado por un rayo de sol, y de repente es noche. Ognuno sta solo sul cuore della terra, trafitto da un raggio di sole, ed è subito to the dreams of the past, the histories of this present, to the memories of our future. She was born in a small town in Puerto Rico. Her name was Graciela. She was young and very tall, the tallest woman in town. Everyone thought she would never marry because tall men were hard to find in the small town. No one knows how she met Roberto. He was taller than her, which was important, and not too handsome. But they fell in love and were engaged soon after they met. The small town did not celebrate the 4th of July. There was no need to. But word about the war in the far fields of Korea had reached town and had women worried and men on the alert. One morning, the town woke up to Graciela's screams. And every woman in the block flocked over to her house as Graciela's mother boiled water, prepared potions, and lit candles. Roberto was standing by the door, holding the letter that ordered him to report to the Army Recruitment Center in San Juan. Graciela was laying in bed, crying and crying. Roberto would be going away. Destination? Unknown. Roberto went in and out of church for days looking for solace and advice. He had never ventured beyond the water surrounding the small island, and he was secretly looking forward to the adventure, even though he would never admit it. But leaving Graciela behind worried him. So he decided to propose marriage, to leave the small town as a married man, leaving Graciela fully committed to him. They had a beautiful wedding with lots of tears, short honeymoon. And then preparation began for him to leave soon after. The day he left, the street was quiet. It was a cloudy day. And the children were playing outside, distracted with other things. Roberto was gone. And Graciela became withdrawn and sad until she received a package with a letter. Everyone gathered around her as she read and giggled and skipped the parts that were meant only for her. Roberto has sent her a present, a scarf which she wore every day. What was sent to the soldier's wife from the ancient city of Prague. From Prague came a pair of high-heeled shoes with a kiss or two came the high-heel shoes from the ancient city of Prague. What was sent to the soldier's wife from Oslo over the Sound? From Oslo he sent a collar of fur, how it pleases her, the little collar of fur from Oslo over the Sound. What was sent to the soldier's wife from the wealth of Amsterdam? From Amsterdam, he got her a hat. Oh, she looks sweet in that, the little Dutch hat from the wealth of Amsterdam. What was sent to the soldier's wife from Brussels in Belgium land? From Brussels he sent laces so rare to have and to wear. All those laces so rare from Brussels in Belgium land. What was sent to the soldier's wife from Paris, city of light? From Paris he got her a silken gown that was handmade in town. Oh, that silken gown from Paris, city of light. What was sent to the soldier's wife from the south of Bucharest? From Bucharest he got her a skirt embroidered and purred, the Romanian skirt from the south of Bucharest. What was sent to the soldier's wife from the far of a Russian land? From Russia there came just a widow's veil for death to be wed in her widow's veil. From the far of a Russian frente al cabo de palo, sobre la agua, retumban los cañones sobre las llamas. ¿Qué será? Ay, ¿qué pasará? ¿Qué habrá sucedido? Que en el campo facioso todo es fingido.
¿Qué será? Ay, ¿qué pasará? Ay, ¿qué habrá pasado? Que ruge
Mussolini, suspira Franco, ¿qué será? Ay, ¿qué pasará? Ay, ¿qué habrá pasado? Que ruge Mussolini, suspira Franco,
Suspira Francisco Paulino Hermenegildo Teodulo Franco y Bahamonde.
You, who will come to the surface from the flood that's overwhelmed us and drowned us all, must think, when you speak of our weakness in times of darkness that you've not had to face. Days when we were used to changing countries more often than shoes through the war of the classes, despairing that there was only injustice and no outrage. Even so, we realized hatred of oppression still distorts the features. Anger at injustice still makes voices raised and ugly. Ah, we who wish to lay forth the foundations for peace and friendliness could never be friendly ourselves. And in the future, when no longer do human beings still treat themselves as animals, look back on us with indulgence.
¿Para qué tantos humos, tantos faroles? Si nuestros marineros son españoles.
Son españoles.
¿Qué será? Ay, ¿qué pasará? Ay, ¿qué habrá pasado? La marina española que va luchando.
¿Qué será? Ay, ¿qué pasará? ¿Qué habrá sucedido? La marina española que ya ha vencido,
Tanto alemán que tienen, tanto italiano, y a un español le basta solo una mano. Y han de ver y lo van a ver como a Baleares, al Cervera y Canarias bajo los mares.
Y han de ver y lo saben bien y ya lo habéis visto. ¿Qué hacen los españoles con el fascismo?
War is a racket. It has always been. Possibly the oldest racket. Easily the most profitable racket. Surely the most vicious racket. Millionaires and billionaires are made from the war racket, but they never shoulder a rifle, never dig a trench, never see the giant flies that feed off the dead men's eyes. They just make a profit. The soldiers of fortune are mission-oriented, but they don't fully understand the business implications of their actions. There is gold in the rubble of Iraq. It's a curious little habit that men have in making wars for many reasons, all those reasons, and no reason at all. Did it start then in that garden when Brother Abel, killed by his own brother, came he was? It's a precious little habit that men have in making wars. We had soldiers, plunder glowing. We look back, and in the end, it's a morbid little habit that men have in making wars. Julius Caesar paid a few cents for each man that he brought down. Now the cost is in the billions to kill in modern wars.
Son los huesos o la ceniza que los 43 normalistas, la primera matrushka abierta desde la Tierra, en la que desde su desaparición han seguido saliendo más y más y más huesos, agrandando el cementerio disfrazado de montañas. Yo quisiera saber cuándo se llegará la última de las muñecas, la que no abra, la más diminuta de todas, ese último hueso en la historia sangrienta del narcotráfico y la corrupción gubernamental. Esa muerte repartida trae una muerte en sus adentros que se repite y se repite y se repite hasta la náusea, marea, ahoga. Decir horror es tan horrible como ser espectador de todo esto. Al menos yo siento que voy a vomitar.
It's an expensive little habit that men have in making wars
For many reasons, or no reasons at all.
It is 1918. Jesus Colon lives in a rooming house on Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn. He works then as a scaler, the dirtiest kind of work you could imagine. As the ships come in, a scaling crew moves in to clean the ship from top to bottom, especially at the bottom, underneath the machine room and inside and around the furnaces. If the ship is an oil tanker, they have to go down to the bottom of that tank ship after the oil is pumped off and collect the oil that the pump is unable to swallow with a small tin shovel and a pail. Pay is better down below than on deck, so he always chooses to work inside the tanker. As the job is about finished, they are supposed to paint the inside of the oil tank with Portland cement by just throwing cement at the walls. Imagine 20 or 25 men throwing cement at the oily walls of an enclosed tank. When they come out, their faces, eyes, brows, and hair look old and gray. They look like the grandfathers of their own selves. One evening, he comes home late from his scaling job. He is very tired.
The room is very cold. I get into bed with all my clothes on, instead of going through the task of starting a fire in the coal stove in the middle of the room. Why is it so difficult for tropical people to start a fire in a coal stove? Then, as if coming from way out in space, through the cracks in my window, I hear a very low, moaning sound. It goes up and down like a wave. Then there is silence for a minute or two. Then it starts all over again in a repressed way, as if the person does not want to be heard by anybody. Then, as if the pain or emotion could not be held back anymore, a piercing cry full of desperation. The cry is coming from another room on the same floor. I knock at the door of the room. The door opens. A man. He turns and sits on a narrow bed which fills the room. He covers his face with his hands and then lets his crying run fully. He tells me of missing a boat where he was working as a coal passer. The boat belongs to a Spanish shipping company. He himself is Spanish. He doesn't know English. He is afraid of the immigration laws. He is shy, but he is proud. He doesn't want to beg. Doesn't want to ask for anything. He has not eaten since. Doesn't remember how many days. He is actually starving, gradually dying of hunger. Have you ever heard of a man crying of hunger in the midst of what is supposed to be the greatest and richest city in the world? At that hour, we leave the rooming house and go to the nearest restaurant. He eats as if he had never eaten before in his life. The next day, I take him to an old iron junkyard where they are asking for strong young men. The job is to break old iron parts of machinery using a sledgehammer. My new Spanish friend wielded that sledgehammer with such gracefulness and ease.
He moves. He doesn't remember the last time he saw that burly, strong young Spaniard. But he will never forget, as long as he lives, the young Spaniard's deep, anguished cry of hunger that night, long, long ago.
Una mattina mi sono alzata, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Una mattina mi sono alzata e ho trovato l'invasor. Oh partigiano, portami via. Bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Partigiano, portami via, che mi sento di morir.
Could you please have just one space flight, one $9 million adventure into the great breath, so that we could divide the loaves and fishes and put 900 more people to work for a year? Or could we please have one nuclear missile so we can defuse it, sell the used parts for $1.10 billion worth of more than just Rice Krispies, breakfast, lunch, dinners?
E se io muoio da partigiano, bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. E se io muoio da partigiano, tu mi devi seppellire, mi seppellire lassù in montagna. Bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Mi seppellire lassù in montagna, sotto l'ombra di un bel fior.
What if we could exchange an M1 rifle for a solar reflector so that our building could have heat all the time? Now wait for avaricious, gun-toting landlords to remember to call the oil company tomorrow for the child next door with pneumonia today. We would even accept a leftover bomber or one $2 million high-tech spacesuit, however patronizing it may seem, or a decommissioned aircraft carrier to relieve tight housing problems. When you add it up, pull together the sum total of the $4 billion a day catastrophe fantasy, the whole is worse than its parts. It's not much, is it?
The world is waiting outside my window. Bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao.
Drag my senses into the sunlight, for there are things that I must do.
just now I have to leave you. Bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao.
With my friends now, up to the city,
We're going to shake the gates of hell.
oh, to go back to Piemonte, back to the secret prayers of resistance of Mondine Piemontesi, back to the women working the rice fields of Piemonte in northern Italy. Oh, go back to the regions and beautiful lakes and hills. Go back, and Piemonte becomes a world unto itself, whose people long ago learned to rely on each other for everything.
E le genti che passeranno. Bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao.
E le genti che passeranno
mi diranno che bel fiore. E questo è il fiore del partigiano. Bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao.
E questo è il fiore del partigiano,
morto per la libertà.
That's my favorite. Al fin de casi todo, mi barca vagabunda, mecida por las olas, con fuerzas me arrastró la isla misteriosa, la que soñamos todos, parece que te invita a entrar en su interior. Yucari es el país que alguien soñó. Yucali es donde se inventó el color. Yucali, en su frontera se detuvo el dolor. En la oscuridad es rayo de luz, la estrella a seguir. Es Yucali.
Who learns my lesson complete? It is no little matter, this round and delicious globe moving so exactly in its orbit, forever and ever, without one jolt or the untruth of a single second. I do not think it was made in 6 days, nor in 10,000 years, nor planned and built one thing after another as an architect plans and builds a house.
I do not think 70 years is the time of a man or a woman, nor that 70 millions of years is the time of a man or a woman, nor that years will ever stop the existence of me or anyone else.
Is it wonderful that I should be immortal? Everyone is immortal, and it is wonderful.
And how I was conceived in my mother's womb is equally wonderful. And how I was born and I grew to become this woman is equally wonderful.
And that my soul embraces you this hour, and that we affect each other without ever knowing each other, and perhaps to never know each other is every bit as wonderful.
And that the moon spins round the earth and on with the earth is equally wonderful. And that they balance themselves with the sun and stars is equally wonderful.
Y la vida nos lleva, cansada cotidiana, por un valle de lágrimas que no deja escapar, dejándonos el alma por todos los rincones, dejándonos jirones, soñando por soñar. Yucali
es el país que alguien soñó. Yucali es donde se inventó el color. Yucali, en su frontera se detuvo el dolor. En la oscuridad es rayo de luz, la estrella a seguir. Es Yucali.
It is a dangerous thing to forget the climate of your birthplace, to choke out the voices of dead relatives when in dreams they call you by your secret name.
It is dangerous to spurn the clothes you were born to wear for the sake of fashion. Dangerous to use weapons and sharp instruments you are not familiar with.
Dangerous to disdain the plaster saints before which your mother kneels praying with embarrassing fervor.
That you survive in the place you have chosen to live.
A bare, cold room with no pictures on the wall.
A forgetting place where she fears you will die of loneliness and exposure.
Jesús, María y José, el olvido is a dangerous thing.
Ognuno sta solo sul cuore della terra, trafitto da un raggio di sole ed è subito sera.
To the cities we came in a time of disorder that was ruled by hunger. We sheltered with the people in a time of uproar, and then we joined in their rebellion.
Ognuno sta solo sul cuore della terra, trafitto da un raggio di sole ed è subito sera.
The city streets led to the swamps.
Our speech betrays us to the butcher.
We can only do little, but without us, those who rule might sleep more easily.
That is how we make use of our time on this earth.
Ognuno sta solo sul cuore della terra, trafitto da un raggio di sole ed è subito sera.
Here we go. Go, time.
Mírala,
Hey, come on.
mírala, mírala,
Mírala,
Hey.
oh,
mírala.
mírala, 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 mírala.
Gracias.
Gracias. Thank you.
Mírala, mírala.
Mírala.
Hey, come on. Hey.
Mírala, mírala. You trace back and forth.
There were struggles and muzzles on mother
And
tongues,
when you trace back,
and drums in the lands of Europe.
and when you trace back and forth,
There is a common struggle.
and when you trace back,
Find a sign of sovereignty and
when you
self-determination.
trace back and forth,
Continuum of control and commerce,
and when you trace back,
of exploit, and those who know that to resist is art.
when you trace back and forth,
To fight with word and with body is
and when you
sacred.
trace
To
back,
fight with word and with body is sacred.
and when you trace back and
To fight
forth,
with word and with body is sacred.
and when you trace
Sacred like
back,
protest and heart's vision.
and when you trace